Welcome to Talk Tennis. This is a very long-awaited episode for myself and all of our listeners. I think this is like one of the most people have been excited about episodes. Prince is on the podcast. We have Tim Puttock from Prince. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm glad people have been waiting for this, and I'm really happy to be here today.
It's like exposing the curtain and
seriously.
Here we go. This is the voice of Prince. Also, all the Purple Rain references have been really fun.
I can imagine.
Just before we get into it, just for our listeners, we were going to make a two-part episode. So this first part is going to be a little more dialed in, questions that we've gone through that are going to be pretty simple for Tim to answer. And then we've got our second part, which is our Ask Anything, Ask Prince Anything. We've heard your questions. We have had so many questions, for like probably the most that we've ever generated for a single podcast episode. So that will be part two. So make sure you get a chance to listen to both if you're starting with one or the other. But we are going to dive right into it. Tim, explain what your role is with Prince. How long have you been with the company?
Yeah, so I'm Director of Research and Development for Prince. I've been with Prince now for almost 20 years. It's been a pretty incredible ride, to be honest. I started out 2006, and I was with the old R&D team in Italy. It was a really fun time. You know, we were really creating some fun stuff. I then spent 5 years in China, actually on the development side, working with the factories on a day-to-day basis, you know, trying to simplify and update some of our manufacturing processes. And then I've been over here in the US for about 10 years, heading up the R&D department and essentially most day-to-day things for Prince.
So you've been around for a minute. I have to ask, I didn't write this in the outline, but were you a Prince player when you were growing up playing?
I wasn't, unfortunately.
One of the few.
You know, yeah, I know. It's funny. I mean, obviously, I tried Prince rackets when I was a kid. I actually was a head player for most of my junior career.
Prestige, I'm guessing.
I actually played with the Radical.
Okay.
Radical. So, and I loved the Prestige. I just maybe wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough to handle it, but and you know, obviously when I started working with Prince, I tried so many different Prince rackets. I probably hit I don't know, in the hundreds. Yeah, definitely in the hundreds of different Prince versions. So it's definitely been fun. It's been a fun 20 years. Been challenging 20 years.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can answer all of these questions.
I know, right? I'm sure you can. And I didn't prep you for this question either, but I think it will be an easy one to answer. For anyone listening to this podcast who maybe is new to tennis, we have a lot of players that started in COVID, so 2020 and beyond. They don't really maybe understand the legacy that this brand has. So maybe you can talk about Prince in the 90s and some of the players that were associated and why it's such a big brand.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty special brand. You know, obviously we're not as big today as we have been in the past, and we had a pretty storied past. We love our past and all the different rackets and all different players that have been involved with the brand. I think Prince obviously started as a tennis ball company, a tennis ball machine company, and you know, in 1978, and then it really started to take off when Howard Head, who had finished his career with the head ski team. You know, he was an avid tennis player, but admittedly himself, I think he wasn't a particularly good tennis player. And just the creator in him decided he wanted to go and sort of try and re-engineer a tennis racket in his own workshop. And he created this oversized racket, which became the Prince Classic. And, you know, I think from that day, the trajectory of the Prince brand completely changed. So it went from really not being a big racket brand to one that everybody was gravitating towards because people were just getting results with it, and it became so much more fun to play. And I really think that's been at the heart of Prince ever since. That sort of drive to innovate and drive to create product that makes the game of tennis more fun for people. And it's not necessarily been anchored in pros ever. We've had pros, and we had a lot of, you know, great players using Prince rackets, but it really has been that sort of desire to just make the game of tennis more accessible and easier for people to play.
That makes sense, and it shows. And I'm a Prince. I was a Prince girly in my youth. So like
Yeah.
I've always the team always has to listen to me gush about like when I got to meet Pat Rafter and Jan
Yeah.
Michael Gamble and
Oh,
like
nice. Yeah, that's awesome.
oh my
Yeah, I
gosh,
mean,
I
it's
love
so
it. It's
funny
so
though, Michelle,
nostalgic.
because so many people, I meet people all the time who they go, "Oh, you work for Prince? Ah, my first racket was a Prince," or
Yeah,
I got a racket when I was in school and it was a Prince. It's amazing how many people have from that generation have played with Prince, and obviously it's not quite the same now. It's obviously something we'd love to change.
yeah.
But yeah, it just that history of it seems like almost everybody has their own story with Prince is pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. You kind of already hit on this, but we'll talk about what's Prince's strategy, motto, goals, etc. going in as we kind of keep going forward into the 2025, 2026, 2027. I'm
Yeah,
sure you guys are already working on.
we are working on it. Yeah, again, I think we have to stick to what the core of the brand is about. So it is always going to be about innovating, creating product that's maybe a little bit different to some of the rest of the product in the market, because we're always going to try and drive to create a different type of playability or a different feel that we hope the regular tennis players, the weekend warriors are going out there and they want to enjoy the game. And tennis is a hard game, but we all play it to various different levels. It's great watching the pros play, but the reality is that most people don't play that game.
Yeah.
So, we all need a little bit more help. I'm getting older now. I've had injuries and all sorts of things that I don't move as quickly. So I need more help in my racket. That's just the reality. And then the game of tennis becomes more fun. So we're always going to be striving to do that. So that's really what the core of the brand is going to be about. And like I said, we're working on new technologies now. We're working on new things that we hope will excite people in the future. So keep
Nice.
your eyes peeled for what's coming.
Awesome. And then this is a very popular question. So, listeners, listen up because I know I am sick of saying it. What is the role between Tennis Warehouse and Prince?
Yeah, I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming because it's definitely an interesting one. So it's where Prince is it's different to most of the brands out there in that we are owned by a licensing company, one of the biggest licensing companies in the world. And obviously Prince as a licensing brand, we have partners all over the world that we work with Tennis Warehouse being our exclusive partner for Prince in the US. Obviously, our relationship with Tennis Warehouse is great, and it's very different to a normal licensee relationship because obviously my team here in the US, we develop products, but we get to work with the amazing team at Tennis Warehouse to test and give us input and feedback, and we have a lot of back and forth about really how we can make product better and try to push the brand forward, knowing what the brand stands for.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's been amazing for us. It's been
Mm-hmm.
great for me. You obviously have a lot of very knowledgeable people there at Tennis Warehouse, so it's super fun to work with them. But that's it's not Prince belongs to Tennis Warehouse or it's really a partnership
Mm-hmm.
in the US. But we have other partners around the world, which I'm sure we'll
Yeah.
get
We got
to
a
at some
lot. Yeah.
point.
We get a lot of questions, but like, I hope
Yeah.
that like kind of starts answering some of the questions because it's like, why not Japan? Why does Japan get certain stuff? Why does Europe not get certain stuff? Why does Australia
Yeah.
not carry this? So
Uh-huh.
that's a good, perfect way of answering it. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's talk about some innovation and maybe you can give an insight into the factory. You mentioned that you were in China for 5 years, so you obviously know the ins and outs.
Yeah, like I said, innovation's really at the core of what we do. So yeah, we work very closely with. We have quite a big network of factories that we work with in China, in Japan, in Vietnam, Thailand. So yeah, obviously for us, it's really important that we continue to push the boundaries where we can. And even if materials stay the same, how can we use them differently? How can we explore different constructions or different methods to create something? Because that's where we can always find small advantages. Look, rackets haven't massively changed in the last 30 years. Materials have essentially stayed more or less the same.
Mhm.
There's always small improvements that we can make on materials and resin systems and things, but it's really that once you get to the factory and you start really trying to do some different things and test different things, that you can maybe find those small advantages. And that's what we're always going to try to do, because, as I said before, we really want to just try to keep making the game more fun for people.
Perfect. This question might get cut out of the episode, but it seems to be the hot topic right now. And we mentioned China. How is Prince dealing with the tariffs at the moment?
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously we're all in a sort of standstill at the moment. I guess
Yeah.
all brands are.
Yeah.
We're just waiting to see what's going to happen. It's obviously challenging for all industries. I think anyone that's bringing product in from China into the US. Fortunately, we have a long relationship with our partners there, and while we're trying to come up with backup plans and see where we can move to different locations, I think we're relatively positive that we can still continue to work with our existing factories in China and be successful and make that work.
Nice. And I have to mention, obviously tariffs are playing a part in right now, but we're seeing price increases without tariffs all across
Right.
the board in the industry.
Yeah.
Shoes, rackets, string, like things that, it definitely for me feels like this is going to be a year that everything gets inflated in price. Prince to this day still has some of the best priced racket options and
Yeah.
shoes and string and bags on our
Yeah.
website.
For
Like to
sure.
the point where like weekly we're like, "Oh my gosh, can you imagine you can get one of these Prince rackets for under $150?" There's some great starter rackets, there's some great weekend warrior rackets, so like and they're great rackets, period.
Yeah. Like I said, part of what Howard Head tried to do was to make the game of tennis more accessible to people. So that is through innovation, but I think it's also through positioning and price point and making sure that we're creating. And I wouldn't necessarily say they're cheap products; they're good quality products, but we're just able to make them available for more people to get their hands on.
Yeah.
I think that's important to us. Obviously, prices are going up. The reality is that materials are more expensive than they were, and manufacturing is more expensive than they were as the manufacturing bases evolve and become more mature. So it's difficult to say that it's always going to maintain the same price as it is, but we're always going to do our best efforts to make sure that that's competitive and we can have good product available for players.
Awesome. One of my questions, and this could be, we kind of like goes into a different question, but what's one of the most impressive things about Prince that you can share that maybe people aren't aware of?
Most impressive things. Again, to me, our most impressive part of the brand is that we just continue to try to innovate and we continue to keep that in our mind at all times. I think what people probably don't realize about the brand is that now, obviously, we've talked about the licensing and the way the brand works with partners, but maybe people don't really realize how small our team is here. So we're actually our development team is a two-man team. We obviously have a lot of work to do, and we work really hard. It's both a challenge and sort of an honor to be able to work in such a small team, because obviously there's so many things that we need to do. We're working with partners all around the world, and most territories have different requirements, so we end up making a huge amount of different product, but we also get to work on everything.
Mm-hmm.
We get to be involved in every decision in terms of product development, so that's huge for us. And is obviously very different to most brands, even very different to when I started working for Prince, and we had maybe 15 people in the R&D team and another 15 people in the product team. And then we had, a huge amount of reps and marketing teams. It just, we're not that now.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, that can sometimes be frustrating. And I'm sure I know we're going to get to some questions about, can we bring certain things back?
Mm-hmm.
And that obviously is a challenge to us when we're such a small team, because we can't do everything. But we have a lot of fun doing what we do. So.
Nice.
Great.
I was gonna say, yeah. So, yeah, what is it? Everyone's offer a little grace if you have a question and you tagged Prince Official on the message board and they haven't responded yet. Just realize that they might be like in China working on the next racket development, or.
And I do have to apologize for that, Michelle, because we did with every intend to come back and be more present with everybody on the message boards. And if we get a moment in time, we will do that. But as you said, just please accept our apologies, because we're just working as hard as we can to try to navigate this. We've obviously had some pretty big launches this year with the RIP rackets, and that's really taken all our time. And we've got some great new stuff coming in 26, which I know we're going to get to as well. So we're working really hard on that, and then everything that's coming beyond that. So
nice.
I think most people would prefer we were doing that and trying to continue to develop products, but I do understand that there's sometimes frustrations that we're not always available.
Totally understandable. And before we talk about the new stuff, let's talk about some of your favorite rackets from the past, things that have stood out. Which ones do you love?
I mean, there's so many, Michelle. Honestly, I've had the pleasure of working on a lot of different products and different rackets. I think some that stand out, maybe. I mean, one of my favorites, back from a few years back, has to be the Tour 98 ESP. I absolutely loved what that frame was. It was just such a fun stick. It really wasn't intended for my style. I don't even hit with much spin. I'm quite a flat hitter. But just the access to spin, I just felt like I was so much better than I am, and it was so much fun. And then probably the most suited racket for me, in terms of my actual play style, was probably the Synergy that we released a few years back. And that wasn't really a huge commercial success. It was. I
love that one too, though.
It was a little bit out there. We did the 18x18 string pattern on it, and obviously, I think people were maybe a little bit confused. We developed it and launched it during COVID, so we definitely didn't get all of the marketing out there that we wanted to. We didn't really tell that story to enough people, and I think people were just confused with what it was. Like I said, I hit quite a flat ball, so that trajectory that I was getting up with that racket, it was just so much fun to hit with.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess the other one that sort of stands out to me, more from a engineering and manufacturing standpoint, is the original XO3 rackets that we did, where we made this sort of carbon energy bridge before we did the injected plastic ones.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't in the market for that long, but it was such a feat of engineering to create those. It was a really fun project to work on. So those are probably the standout ones for me. But honestly, I could reel off so many rackets.
I know. Well, I'm hitting later, and I'm like, wait, I want to go get that DB Classic that we relaunched and restrung and hit with it later. Oh my gosh! Yeah. Now I'm thinking through all the rackets.
I know.
Okay. But I was going to have you segment out the current rackets maybe real quick, and then we can go into what's coming. So maybe just like quickly explain each family of rackets and who they're for, and like what a player can expect.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, I'll do that from a US perspective, because obviously for our global markets, we have quite a lot of other rackets. And we'll probably talk about that a little later on, so why that is. But in the US, we really have 4 major franchises. So we have the Phantom, which is sort of that classic Prince, thin beam, really classic feel. It's kind of an underpowered racket, but it's so much fun to hit with if you swing well. And you're really not going to find anything else on the market that has that sort of flexy, pockety feel.
100%.
Then we have the Tour, which is sort of our, control. So it's got a little bit of pop to it as well, compared to some of the other control frames in the market. But that's really intended to be that control frame for in the Prince assortment. Then we have the new Rip range that we just launched. And you've probably seen them around. They're bright red and blue. They're really in your face. And again, I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about that. But those are designed for power. So the Rip Stick has the O3. So it has a huge sweet spot. It's a little heavier. So it's got a little higher swing weight, a little bit more head heavy, just really crushes the ball. And then we have the Rip Cord, which is sort of the sister racket. That is faster through the air. It's got great, it's obviously still quite a thick racket, but it has great maneuverability, great racket head speed for power. So you're sort of achieving power in two different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the legacy frames, which are our oversized rackets. They all come with O3, really big sweet spot. Just such a great racket for anybody that has a sort of shorter, slower swing. And I know we have a really good following on those rackets.
Yeah.
I think in that segment, they're just really good frames. And again, like I said before, we really want to create rackets that are good for people to enjoy playing tennis. And for that type of player that has that, shorter and slower swing, I really don't think that there's anything out there that's better than that. So
yeah. And then even relating it back to like the Playtest Squad, Chris will literally take a Legacy 120. We joke about this all the time, but it's true. He'll take a Legacy 120 off the wall and play doubles with it once in a while.
It's so much fun, though. It's so much fun to play doubles with it. You feel like you can just stick the racket out and it'll work for you.
And then Troy's like obsessed with the Ripcord right now. He obviously it's a little bit lighter than his personal preference, but he loves the feel. So he's like doctoring one up and like.
He's not going to ask me for one with the crossbar, is he?
He probably is.
Okay.
He's starting a campaign.
Yeah. I've seen it.
More crossbar. And then Tiffany's daughter actually is switching she's going to be a freshman in high school, and I coach the local high school team, so she's trying out for our tennis team.
Nice.
But she just got a new Ripcord, the lightest in the Ripcord, and she's going to be using that. So
that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and
honestly, that's a really fun racket to transition into. I think, the Ripcord, because it does have that lower swing weight and it is easy to swing. And it just gives you some help. It's such a fun racket.
Yeah, honestly. For sure. Okay, so let's talk about what's coming. We've had so many questions. When do the tours get updated? What's new? So tell us about what's on the horizon.
All right, so 2026.
Yeah, I mean, if we can.
Well, before we get there, I think to round out this year, we do have another few rackets that we're launching. So we've got the Ripcord 98 XS, which is going to be launching later in the year around US Open time. That's a sort of more compact Ripcord. It's a slightly heavier weight. And it's got a sort of unique, more aerodynamic cross section. So even though it's heavier, it's still going to feel like it's quick through the air. And that's really for, a bit more of an advanced player, but that's going to be a super fun frame for people to try. I think if you like that power, but want something that's just a little bit more dialed in, a little bit more compact, that's going to be a fun one for people to try. And then obviously we've got the O3 Phantom 100, which
launches in 2 days. So by the time this is out, it's going to be out there.
Yeah. And that was one that I think we'll probably talk about O3. But we've really in recent years just been putting O3 in our sort of more powerful rackets, because it obviously has a lot of benefits for that type of frame, because it just, it makes the sweet spot bigger. You get more string bed movement. But I think we had so many people asking us to sort of bring back the O3 Tour 100. And when we did the first generation of the O3 Phantom 100, it was really still quite different to the O3 Tour 100. It didn't quite hit the mark and provide that same playability that people wanted. It's really difficult for us to do. We can't construct the frame in the same way as we used to with the O3 Tour 100. It's so complicated. Honestly, the factories just say,
they're like, nope, no more.
We're not doing that anymore. and there's challenges because we did the molded string holes and everything. Just it was just a really complicated construction. Um, but we wanted to try and build the new O3 Phantom 100 and take a lot of that DNA from the O3 Tour 100 from back in the day. So we've gone back and we've re-engineered the whole frame from the ground up. It's a new frame mold. We've looked at the layup, the way that the carbon is positioned to try to get it as close in terms of all the different flex zones as we can to the O3 Tour 100. I know we had a lot of back and forward with the playtest team there at TW and took a lot of the input there to try and really dial it in and make sure that it was as good a frame as possible. So we're really excited about that coming out. I think people are gonna really enjoy
I
that
think
one.
so
Particularly
too.
those players that love the O3 Tour.
Yeah, for sure. And then can we get a sneak peek into 2026?
Oh yeah,
And if
we
you
didn't get
say
there.
yes, that's what I was gonna say. I just
Yeah.
want to like let our listeners know, like right now we're in the season of like previewing 2026 product with like many vendors,
Hmm.
and oftentimes we're like signing the NDA. Like we are not
Yeah,
allowed to
yeah,
talk about anything that's coming out past like next week. So
yeah. Well, we might not talk about 2027 because
okay,
we won't do that. But 2026, I think we're pretty comfortable talking about.
nice.
Obviously, it's what everybody wanted to hear.
Yeah.
We are bringing out the updated version of the tour family
Woo!
for 2026. We're really excited about it. I know everybody's been waiting for it because it's been a little
It's
while.
yeah, it's been a minute.
And we're going to be sort of closing out our Tech Streams Island story because we haven't had that on the tour frame. We've also been working on some different constructions, some different ways of doing our light process, which again, we don't want to settle and just do add the Tech Streams Island and do that minor update. I think we really wanted to make sure that we were dialing it in and getting the playability as good as we can for that type of player. So, we've really sort of gone back to the drawing board with the construction there. So we're really excited about it. And I think what people are going to be really most excited about is it's going to be all black and it's going to look really good.
That's awesome.
It's so nice.
Nice. I love that. I know we've hit some prototypes of the tours, and I know like Oak and myself really love that racket. So I'm looking forward to it. I actually, when I was thinking of what rackets I need to get strong for today's hit, I'm like, wait, I haven't hit the Tour 98 in a minute. I got to get it
Yeah.
back. Got to get it going.
Yeah.
Well, this might be the second part, but I know we've gotten a ton of questions. It's your team that's like picking cosmetics, and what are you looking at? How are you figuring out what racket franchise gets what?
Yeah, I mean the cosmetic process. Obviously, as I explained before, we have partners all over the world, and a lot of the time those partners are in different situations, and the presence of the Prince brand is different in a lot of territories to others. We develop the cosmetics. 3 or 4 years in advance, we have it sort of planned out what's coming. So I think we took. We took an approach and we discussed an approach a little while back that we were going to try and sort of do something different in the cosmetic space and sort of zig where other brands are zagging. We kept the same sort of inside outside blocking for quite a long time, and we refreshed that cosmetic, and we were just sort of offering updates in the cosmetic to other things. Obviously, Prince being a licensing brand, we have a lot of other brands in the portfolio that are in like the fashion space, and they do some really cool things with their color trending and the way they change aesthetics to sort of create attention. And I think what we were really trying to do was this first cycle of brackets was to do something that's a little bit more provocative, particularly for a lot of our global markets, because the presence isn't as big as a lot of the other brands. You go into a retail store and we maybe have one peg or two pegs on the wall that have Prince products on. So we really wanted something that jumped out a little more, particularly as we don't have so many players on tour using the racket. So we sort of took that strategic approach to be a little bit more provocative, to try some different types of cosmetics. And then I think we'd always planned that the second cycle round we were going to do something that was more classic,
Mm.
darker looks
Hmm.
to it. So that's obviously coming with the tour in 26, but yeah, that's sort of how that worked. We go through a process where we have. I mean, I don't want to talk for my colleague, but he goes through a huge process of trying lots of different designs, and we have a lot of different paint finishes. Sometimes they make it, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they get used in other territories
Mm-hmm.
because they're more suited to that territory at that time. Um, but yeah, for the global models, it's really about trying to make as much noise as we can, and we know that sometimes that means that some people love them and some people hate them. And I get that, but we
People are
we
talking
obviously
though.
yeah, people talk about it, and it's great that people talk about Prince, even if it's that they don't necessarily love the current cosmetic. But I can almost guarantee that all of those people that were negative about the previous tour cosmetic are really going to love the new one because it's quite a big departure from that. So
And clearly, the year of 2025 was the year for bright blue rackets.
yeah, it's so funny because I see comments like, "Oh, Prince just did the same thing as the Head Radical, and Prince just did the same thing as the Yonex Easer, and they just copied the colours." I'm like, we've had these in the hopper for 3-4 years, and the
Yeah.
funny thing was we were actually scheduled to introduce the Rips last year, so we would have actually
You would have
launched
been the first.
before the other brands, and some certain things happened with manufacturing, and so it got the launch got pushed back, and then it's like, oh, you've just done the same thing. And I'm like, we haven't done the same thing. It's just coincidence. But it's funny that, maybe we're just on trend,
Yeah.
that's sort of the way that the colors have gone this year. And yeah, it's really interesting.
No, it's funny because even with apparel and shoes, sometimes there'll be like the US Open and we'll see like Adidas and they'll tell us their color story. And then we'll see Nike and they'll tell us their
Mm.
color story. And we're like, oh, they're doing the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, we have the benefit of working with a lot of fashion brands in the portfolio, and seeing what is coming in colors, and sometimes we work with them to come up with some of the ideas, and just so happens that obviously some of those other brands are also on
Yeah.
trend, which
Or there's
is
some
really,
good moles out there. I don't
yeah,
know. Let's talk about some other products because, unlike other brands, you're not just doing rackets. I
right,
think you're doing everything. So,
yeah,
yeah, the T22 is also an iconic tennis shoe. And like, if
yeah,
again, if you're from Prince from the 90s, I grew up wearing Prince. I don't even know what model it was, but it was the white with the black and the eyelets and probably mid. Yeah, they're probably men's
yeah,
shoes, and they had a warranty on them. I'm pretty sure. Anyways, the T22s are iconic, people's favorite. We've
yeah,
seen some progression with the T22.5. We've seen the Venom. We've seen the Phantom. We've seen a few of the shoes. What's new with shoes? What's coming with shoes? And is the
yeah.
T22 going to remain?
Yeah, of course
It
it
has
is.
to.
It has to. The T22 has such a great following. I think it's one of those shoes. Like a lot of things with Prince, it was a bit of a slow burner to start with, and then I think people just were like, "Well, the step and feel is great, and the comfort is great, and you can't really find something else that's really the same as that." And so
Yeah.
people just keep going back to it and going back to it and going back to it. It's really interesting because that's one of those that when we started making it, it had a really interesting lasting process that's sort of different to the way shoes are normally made.
Hmm.
And what happened was it just made the toe spring different, and it opened up the toe box, and I think that made it sort of a really unique shoe.
Hmm.
And again, you just can't find those kind of shoes out there anymore. So we obviously want to keep making that, and keep making sure that the product is available to everybody that loves it. We have done updates. We did the T22 Lite first, which was sort of a stripped down version, because we were obviously trying to make it maybe more accessible to other types of players. And then we did the T22.5, which is a really nice update to the T22. Obviously, we're working on new colorways for that. There's gonna be some nice fun colors coming in 25, 26. So Yeah, that's not going anywhere.
Nice.
The Venom has been really good for us. I think again, it's one of those that's maybe been a slow burner, but it it's has that sort of same step and feel. It has that great, sort of DNA of the T22 and Prince shoes that people expect. So we love that shoe, and
Mhm.
I know we get quite a lot of good feedback from people that have tried it. It's just one of those that maybe people aren't necessarily going out and trying, but
Mhm.
I encourage people to do it because it's a great shoe. And then we are working on new footwear. We've done a really interesting project with our Japanese partner. So obviously, like we work with Tennis Warehouse, we also work with a team in Japan who've been part of the Prince brand for a long time, and we've developed from the ground up a brand new shoe for them. That we've spent a lot of time really dissecting different sports shoes and understanding what is going on in footwear development, and really sort of tailored that to the Japanese market.
Mhm.
Now, we've tried Japanese shoes over here before, and unfortunately, there's a couple of issues. One is that the Japanese foot tends to be wider,
Mhm.
so the last doesn't necessarily suit
Mm.
most
Mhm.
markets. The other issue is that we make that for them, and so the size run tends to stop at like size 10 or 11 US, which is kind of a problem for most markets because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people with bigger feet over here. So it's something that we're looking at seeing if we can adapt to make sure that it does fit a global foot as well. Obviously, we've been developing that specifically for that team because of the nature of their market. They have quite a mature customer base, so they have very specific needs, and we work very closely with them on those. But yeah, we're excited if that comes to the US too because
Nice.
it's going to be a great shoe.
Awesome. Okay, let's keep going through the categories.
Right.
String. If I
Yeah,
mean like iconic. Also,
I know.
Prince and string is pretty iconic.
Yeah,
I mean like, and also shout out to all the fun rainbow Singut string.
yeah.
Let's
You,
talk about the segments and what's
you
coming.
know, you know what? I still now love going back and hitting Singer.
Me too.
It's like it's such an underrated string. I think people think it's a cheap option. That it's such a good string still
And
to go and
straightening
play
the
with.
strings. I mean, like,
Yeah,
if you know, you know.
yeah,
I love that sound.
I know. Yeah, absolutely.
And the smell. I'm sorry. That's
Yeah,
so
I know.
weird. You
No,
know, you
it's not
work,
weird. It's not weird at all to me.
you
Always when I
know.
get new products, we'll open it and that smell is just it's iconic.
Our warehouse, if you walk out towards the street, there's two parts of the warehouse that are usually open during the day. And just walking by, you smell the Singut smell.
Yeah,
And I'm just like,
yeah,
ah, it smells so
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, there's no problem. We'll just keep talking about how good strings smell.
Yeah, weird.
Um, yeah,
Better
well,
than natural gut smell.
yeah, for sure.
And talk to us about what's currently in line because there's a lot of Prince string options.
We have a lot. Strings is such a competitive space. There's so many
Yeah.
brands out there, particularly in the poly space now. But yeah, we have a full range of strings from multi filaments, obviously to the classics like Singer and Lightning and Topspin and Pro Blend. We have
Love
all of
it.
those classics are still there, and then obviously we've got our poly strings, which are intended for the more modern play style, to help you get more spin. We've got different versions of that, different thermopolys. We've got shape polys in there, so we've really got everything there.
You do.
Yeah,
And at a
and
great price point. I'm just
a
gonna keep
great
hitting
price
that.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, a great price point. And again, I think it's one of those when there's so many options out there, people don't always know what to try, and a lot of the time it comes down to just to order some and test it and see if you like it. But again, like I talked about with the rackets, we're always trying to find ways to make improvements and find strings that are going to be even more fun to play with. So we've got a few new string projects that we're working on that are going to launch in 26.
Nice.
First one is a brand new multi-filament string
Nice.
where we've done it's like a super micro filament. They're really, really tiny filaments, which meant that we're able to get loads more filaments and really pack them close. It's actually a really interesting sort of engineering challenge because we can pack it closer. The actual bonding resin wasn't able to get in between the fibers, so we had to really redevelop all of that. And it's resulted in like a really interesting side effect in that the string actually the energy return is great because we've got so many microfilaments, but the
Mhm.
actual bonding material actually allows the string to slide really well. So it's like
Oh,
a
nice.
super sort of snapback sort of multi, which is really really interesting. So we're excited about that one. And then obviously, we wanted to do some new things in the poly space as well. Obviously, there's been a lot of push towards the sort of softer types of polys, just because they can be a little demanding. They can, it's not always nice if you're hitting off center and things. So that softer poly that gives a little bit more pocket, I think, is going to suit more players. And again, I think it's going to come at a really competitive price that is great for the market. And then we're working on a new shaped poly,
Nice.
which is going to be really interesting because it's sort of like an X shape. It's like a really aggressive square that's got these like notches in it as well that really help to get as much edge on the ball for really gripping the ball, but it still allows it to slide back because there's actually less surface contact between the strings. So we're super excited about that one as well. I don't know if you've had a chance to hit that yet. Probably not
I
because we
don't think
saw
I
it
have.
goals. So
They hide the good stuff from me.
yeah, no, I know. Yeah, we'll make sure that you get some of that so you can hit. That's obviously going to come a little later in 26 because
Uh,
it's still sort of in development. But
nice.
we're excited about that one.
I'm now thinking, oh, sorry, I'm old, guys. When we're like old, all I do is like have nostalgic thoughts. My favorite Prince string growing up was called Control Freak. Do you remember
Oh
that
yeah,
one?
yeah, yeah.
I still have a pack in my desk,
You
and it
do.
was, yeah.
Well, how that plays,
I
probably
know.
not
I
that
don't want to
enjoyable.
string it, but
Yeah.
yeah. And it was like, it's so funny because we have some guys in the office that are under 25,
Hmm.
and I like they never even were alive before poly strings didn't exist. So like,
Yeah, it's wild, right?
it's so weird.
And I think that I think that's part of the issue with the modern player is that they think that poly's the only option.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, I still love going back and playing with Singut because that feeling is, and maybe it's nostalgia, maybe it's like, oh, that's the feeling I had when I played as a kid. But
Hmm.
there's just still something about it when you hit the ball, the sound, I just I encourage players to try some different things because poly isn't always the answer unless you're really able to get that string to move and work for you. Then it might not be the best option.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, one more question, and then we're gonna end this episode, and we're gonna jump in to the next one. And I'm leaving the spicy question from this outline for the next
Okay.
episode. So, talk to me
Excellent.
a little bit about bags because your bags are really cool, really well made.
Mm.
Um, I feel like, we've through the years we've seen certain vendors, brands kind of like manufacture a bag and it starts trending. I always call out Technofiber with the rack pack. I
Yeah.
feel like they were the first one to do that. But you guys
Mhm.
did the duffel backpack, which is
Yep.
like perfect for travelers. So talk a little bit about the bag segment.
Yeah, I love that duffel pack
It's
too. It's
awesome.
such a great bag. I honestly I carry it every day to work, even when I'm not playing tennis. So
Yeah.
it's a really great bag. But yeah, we've got a really nice new Tour Carbon bag collection. Obviously, there's a your traditional 12 pack and 6 pack there, but then we do have the duffel pack as you've already mentioned, and then the duffel as well. They're really nice. I think they came out really well. We've often had people ask about our bags and why we don't have bags where they always match the cosmetics. Why haven't we
Mm-hmm.
got a red one for the ripstick and a blue one for the ripcord?
Mm-hmm.
I think for us, obviously, we are smaller and we do have to be conscious of how many options we have out there. We have a lot of rackets, we have a lot of strings, but I think for us, having that sort of more neutral aesthetic on the bag allows us to that anybody who's using any Prince racket, or even if you're using a different brand, you can use our bag, and I think that's why we've sort of made that decision. we do have some new bags coming later this year as well. Again, with a bit like the duffel pack, we're trying some different silhouettes and different styles. So we have a really interesting sort of crossbody sling bag that holds a racket as well, and some more price point options that I think are I don't want to say price point. I want to say they're definitely not cheap, but they're really competitive price for that consumer, and they're really good quality. So we're excited about the bag collection, and there might be some new colors coming on the tour bags. So
nice.
We'll see.
I just love. You got to do the retro. Now I'm going to be the one like, can you do a retro Prince bag? Oh,
yeah.
Okay, we'll save that for.
Yeah, we'll add that to the next pod. Can you do this? And
Sorry, I'm going to have some of my own.
That's all right. All right.
Okay, amazing. We got through so much, and we're going to save the question about pro players and Prince for the next episode because I think that could get spicy.
It could get spicy.
So thank you so much, Tim, for this part 1. Make sure you guys stay tuned for part 2 where we answer all of your questions, literally all of them. There were over 50 easily. We'll try to answer all of them. And that's the end of part 1. So nice job. Happy hitting.
Thanks.
See you out there. Try Prince.